three for you. How and why did the founders create America's system of federalism? How does federalism limit the power of both the national government and the states? How does federalism extend opportunity for citizen participation? When you're ready, you may begin.
In his 1981 inaugural address, Ronald Reagan stated, "All of us need to be reminded that the federal government did not create the states. The states created the federal government. The dichotomy between the national and states governments is the defining feature of an American system of government. Historical failures of both the unitary and confederate systems encouraged the creation of federalism."
Following the French and Indian War, Great Britain was left with a staggering debt. As their economy stagnated, they were forced to turn to the colonies for money. Revenue-raising measures like the Sugar Act of 1764 and the Stamp Act of 1765 enraged the colonists. These taxes, along with the perceived lack of representation, pushed the colonies to revolution. They were finally free from the restraint of British government. The colonies joined together in a confederation. However, this proved to be a remarkable failure.
The Articles of Confederation left no way for Congress to enforce laws, make foreign policy decisions, create a standing national army, or provide a source of revenue. This limited power meant the national government could not even control a simple protest. Shays' Rebellion was a protest caused by the post-war economic crisis. It was unable to be quickly stopped because they could not assemble the states' armies and no national army existed.
After experiencing the failures of both the Unitary and Confederation, the founders recognized a need for change. They created a system of government known as federalism, which is the division of power between the central government and state or local governments that combines aspects of both the Unitary and Confederation systems. Wanting certain powers to remain with the national governments and certain powers with the state governments, limits were placed on both, in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights.
Alexander Hamilton once explained, "It's not tyranny we desire, it's a just, limited federal government." The framers of the Constitution shared Hamilton's desire and wanted to preserve the state power. The 10th Amendment is the clearest example of this. It ensures that the Constitution only defines the limits on states, not their powers. Article 1, Section 10 enumerates some of these limits. States are prohibited from coining money, entering war, and creating treaties. Article 4, Section 1 and 2 force states to respect contracts under the full faith and credit clause. The 14th Amendment, Section 1, specifies that the state shall not make or enforce any law which would abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens. While the states seem to have many restrictions, it pales in comparison to the federal government. Article 1, Section 8 states that the national government may only take certain actions.
Unlike the states, Congress is limited to the powers given them by the Constitution. This has allowed states to expand jurisdiction and provide for more diversity of law. For example, marriage is never mentioned in the Constitution, making it a state's right. Currently, only 9 states allow same-sex marriage. Only because of the system of federalism is this diversity possible. However, in the 1987 case, South Dakota v. Dole, the 10th Amendment and thus the power of the states were limited. The federal government is able to place conditions on the states if it qualifies under these 4 restrictions. The condition must be unambiguous, promote the general welfare, relate to the federal interest, and conform to the 10th Amendment's reservation of powers to the states.
Civic participation is a basic right that can be used in one of the 87,909 governments in the United States. One of the most common forms comes by voting for representatives in these different levels. This gives the public a more personalized connection to their policymakers. The First Amendment allows people to petition and assemble. Occupy Wall Street is a protest currently going on about wealth inequality and political corruptions. On November 19th, Occupy Wall Street participated in a movement to help the less privileged communities hit by Superstorm Sandy.
Jury duty in both state and federal courts allows citizens to be part of the judicial process by utilizing the opportunity to aid the government in giving its citizens a fair trial. These are just a few of the many ways for citizens to actively participate in federalism. New York Congressman Charles Rangel once stated, "Full participation in the government and society has been a basic right of the country, symbolizing the full citizenship and equal protection of all." Thank you.
Given your understanding of history, do you believe that we have moved more toward the unitary form of government?
Absolutely. Initially, the Constitution and the dichotomy between the state and national governments was very distinct, almost 2 separate layers. And now we have a much more cooperative situation, almost like a layer cake turning into a marble cake.
I would like to disagree. I think that we are still a very strong federalism system because of the limitations placed on both the states and the state governments and the national governments in the Constitution. like in, Article 9, Article 1, Section 9 places limits on Congress, on the national government, shoot, I'm thinking of Congress, the Tenth Amendment gives states the powers, all the powers not listed in the Constitution are given to the states.
While all the powers listed in the Constitution, not listed in the Constitution, are given to the states, the federal government has been encroaching on most of those powers, creating this marble cake as opposed to the layer cake, and by creating such acts or threatening to take away funding for a certain project to get the states to go in more of their direction of how they want things to go, making it more of a unitary system.
The states, I would say, have still a lot of power because they have their own police power still, which means they can enforce the laws how they want with what punishments they see fit. And there are different court systems for state crimes and federal crimes, and that gives the states still their powers to enforce their laws through the state courts.
If a state believes the federal government has taken too much power, what recourse do the states have to check the national government's actions?
Well, 2/3 of the states could ratify a law which makes it federal law.
Two-thirds of the states could petition to have a constitutional convention to create an amendment to the Constitution overturning the federal law, is what Sydney's trying to say.
Or you could go more the direction of Colorado and Washington, how they felt that the Congress is putting marijuana in a controlled substance bracket 1, when they passed the referendum to make it legal in their state, they are directly opposing the federal government's ban on it, and therefore they're trying to challenge the federal government's power.
In Federalist 37, Madison talks about how the states are more equal power to the national government because they have the power of the people behind them, because the people that they elect will represent their voice, or they should represent their voice in Congress.
In addition, the states can almost use a form of what is almost civil disobedience to disagree with the national government. We can see this with the recent implementation of the Affordable Care Act, where many states are refusing to implement the healthcare exchanges on a state level and forcing the national government to intervene. So this kind of non-compliance with federal law is a great way for states to really petition against the federal government.
The states can also use the 11th Amendment, like Montana did, to try to overturn Citizens United, the FEC, in order to get the judicial branch to relook some of the laws they essentially created through previous cases.
Should all licenses, including teacher, driver, doctor, lawyer, marriage, be under national jurisdiction, or should each state be able to make their own rules for these licenses?
Each state should be able to make their own rules because it allows for more personalized and individualized lawmaking and policymaking. For example, in a state like Colorado, where there's going to be very mountainous terrain, very large amounts of snow, you want higher requirements for driver's licenses for those kinds of areas. Whereas in a state like Alabama, you're not going to run into snow a lot, and you don't need that kind of requirement. So allowing this kind of individualized policymaking better suits the individuals of both the states.
In addition to what Chase said, the state should also have the right to do that. For the example of marriage, some states allow gay marriage while others don't. And it's a choice of where you want to live, and if you choose to participate in, I forgot what you told John to call it, gay marriage, then you can go live where you want, as opposed to be either restricted or being restricted in a certain state.
I believe it should be recognized by the federal government as a whole, because you are a citizen of the United States. You are not a direct citizen of Nevada or Texas. And if you get married, it is recognized, if you get married as a man and a woman, it is recognized throughout every state. So other contracts such as that should be recognized, like a license to drive and such other things, because those states, the state that you get it from does permit that, and other states should, recognize that and attribute that to it.
Biggest comment is get it in and get it out. You guys spent so much time trying to answer questions, you only got 3 questions.
We got 7 answers to 1 question.
Yes, you did, that is true. You guys have any comments for him?
Concise. Just be concise.
Just make sure you use examples. I mean, you did, but
But they weren't paying any attention.
Okay. Sid, when you start, you gotta start with more authority.
Okay.
You're like this. I mean, it's gotta be right at the judges, you gotta go, you are leading this off, you need to pull in right now, okay? Practice, you have a 355, so you're still short. I think you guys can give another example on how federalism more specific, tangible, real-life example of how federalism extends participation to both levels. I think you probably get something in there on that.
Speaking of that, we kind of are, I don't know, at least I am, so confused. You told us like 4-H and Boy Scouts, that's federalism, but we don't, I don't understand how.
Okay, is there a national 4-H?
No, states.
It's all states, but is there a national 4-H organization?
Yes,
That's federalism.
because there's like a national thing and then there's individual,
No.
like state thing.
It's not about the electoral college. Electoral college takes real representatives from each state to really go and elect for the president. That's the electoral, I mean, there's an example. You could talk about certain individuals being elected. For example, like President Obama started in the state legislature of Illinois, made his way to the Senate, and made his way to president. That's federalism. Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein was a city councilman in San Francisco, or they're not city council, whatever they're called, supervisors, state legislature, and now is a US senator. And that's examples of federalism, extending opportunities for people who were elected to be elected on different levels. Sarah, make sure you get an example you were great on your answer to unitary, but why?
Okay,
Some sort of example, okay? Make sure you nail it. Jack, the term you're looking for is the power of unfunded mandates. What's an example of an unfunded mandate? Education. What else is an example of an unfunded mandate? DUI law,
Drinking,
transportation age, speed transportation.
Is this speed limit?
Speed.
Not anymore, speed limit's gone. That was an unfunded mandate and then left in what, 96. So, no child left behind, drinking age,
No.
DUI law.
Also, that's drinking.
What's that?
South Dakota legal.
It's the one.
Drinking age, right?
That's drinking age, yeah. Good example of police powers. When you use your Madison example, 37, which is a great quote for the next question, tied in with, he personifies that in when he writes the Virginia, he helps to write the Virginia and Kentucky resolutions. So you can bring in both a quote and a historical example and kind of wrap up, because I think you're kind of finding a way to end what you said there. Use the quote and then you can end it by, and then he exemplified that later on in 1798 when he wrote the Virginia Kentucky resolutions, or helped write the Virginia Kentucky resolutions. 2/3 constitutional. Okay.
if someone like makes like when someone like just makes like a mistake, like confuse something, like Mason, would it be alright if you're like, well, I think my colleague meant blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
that's fine, and then you,
And then
you answer your own question.
Okay.
Yeah, my colleague meant 2/3 to propose the I knew where you're going with it.
We all knew where she was going
Right.
with it.
Mason plus a person first.
But yeah, 11/10 when you came back to that was a much better answer.
Yeah.
Definitely a much better
I
answer.
didn't think of it.
That's okay. Marriage. If you guys want to stay away from gay marriage, because gay marriage is a hot
what
issue.
did you tell John to call it?
Civil unions.
Maybe that's it.
No.
It was somewhere,
He,
because he laughed every time he said it.
no, that was
Sodomy.
Sorry,
Sodomy.
that's That's
That's
the Anchor State.
Oh.
That's the Anchor State.
Oh,
That's
that's
the funny,
funny.
of course they take part in. A better example is California. You have to have before you get married, you have a 6-month waiting period, and you also have to take a blood test. The reason being is so that the state of California, there's a reason for it. The state of California wants to ensure that you know that who you're marrying doesn't have any sexually transmitted diseases, such as AIDS or HIV or hepatitis.
What if you-
Don't you think that
what
would
if you
affect
moved
you
there from
before
somewhere
you got
else?
married?
Not if you're following the 10 Commandments. Okay.
Yeah, Jack. Is that legislation probably based off 1980s and AIDS and like?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
San
Totally.
Francisco?
Wait,
Yeah.
so it's for every marriage, not
Every
just, okay.
Every marriage in California. But I mean, it's if you have AIDS, it's not illegal, right?
Just
It's
having
just
your-
It's just
have to-
letting your partner
letting
know.
party know that you potentially are at risk of some sexually transmitted disease. And it's it's definitely part of the AIDS movement, all those different things. But you know, you could have been having unprotected sex. Now you want to try to get pregnant and have unprotected sex. Now it's a different story. You had protected sex
That's only if you're getting married in California.
in California.
Not
So
if
that's
you
what different
travel.
things. What allows you all to drive in any other state in the union?
Full faith and credit clause?
No.
Privileges and immunities.
Police power.
It's a
I don't know.
interstate compact. Full faith and credit does not apply to driver's license because
Why?
licenses are state to state.
What do you-
Licenses are not contracts. So there's a difference between a marriage, which is full faith and credit, which is something I wanted you to bring up for your counter argument.
Mhm.
Because licenses, I can't teach in the state of California. I have a teacher's license. I have to get a California state license. I'm a nationally board certified teacher. I still can't teach in any other state but Nevada. All right, I'm recognized by all 50 states to be nationally board certified, but I still have to pass the requirements to teach in any other state. Certain states allow the license to go across state lines because of interstate compact, which is an agreement between 2 or more states. Interstate compacts have to be approved by Congress.
So if some state just decided they didn't want to partake in that, they could just,
And then you wanna be able to drive in that state?
But all
Do
50
any
states do.
states have that? Or no?
I mean, you guys can apply for WUI, interstate compact. Okay?
What about something like my cousin's a nurse and she got her medical license in California. She can,
She went to school in California.
and got a medical license in California and now works at Nevada, and all she had to do for Nevada was like fill out like paperwork.
That's fine.
But she still had to.
But she still had to do that. She just couldn't start practicing.
Okay.
So in order for me to teach in California, I have to fill out the paperwork and I have to take a California law test.
Then what is national board, just to be recognized?
I get paid more.
Oh.
States recognize that I've gone through a certification that I am a highly qualified top nurse. Top, I'm in the 1% of teachers in the United
Clark is
States.
the 1%.
I am the 1%.
On November 19th, Occupy Wall Street settled the protest over unions.
What's that?
Is Harvard board certified?
No, she's not.
I definitely don't think she did.
Okay. So,
You guys are a video.
we don't catch Mr. Clark throwing things at the students, we catch
any other questions?
Defamation.
Okay, Mr. Clark threatening me with a pen. Save me.